Hey guys, Technomentary here with the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the iPhone XS or the XS versus the Apple iPhone 8. In this video, we're going to take a look at the hardware, the software, and then the overall performance of these two phones in 2021 running on iOS 14. Which one should you buy? Is it worth upgrading for the iPhone 8 to the XS or not? All of that in this video. Stay tuned while we break everything down for you guys. Before we go ahead and get started, if you guys are new to the channel, we do a lot of tech news, reviews, and giveaways. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you guys are in the market for one of these phenomenal devices and looking to get a discounted price, make sure you guys check out the link in the description section where you guys can get one of these devices at a pretty discounted price. And now, so let's go ahead and talk about these two phones. So the iPhone XS was released in 2018 and the iPhone 8 was released in 2017 of September, around the Apple time where Apple releases every year of their flagship phone. Both of the phones are pretty much a flagship phone from Apple, but a lot has changed between these devices, although they're only a year difference apart. And the first thing we want to take a look at is the actual body of these two phones. You'll notice a lot of similarities and a lot of differences at the same time between these two bodies. Of course, if you take a look side by side, you'll notice the iPhone XS just having that bigger body compared to the iPhone 8 with just a smaller body of it. Of course, these two phones come in varying colors. The iPhone XS comes in your silver, your space gray edition, and the gold edition. Similarly, the same for the iPhone 8. Also, the iPhone 8 does come in this product red edition, which the iPhone XS does not. That's the special edition Apple has released. You'll notice a lot of similarities between these body phone as well, because both of the phone does have both front and back being glass. So you'll notice that gives one advantage is around charging. You're able to charge both of these phones wirelessly because of that back glass. But the build of these two phones are slightly different material. Although they look very similar, the iPhone XS does have surgical grade stainless steel compared to the iPhone 8, which has aerospace grade aluminum body to it. Almost pretty much really a high quality material built to it. Of course, the front and back are glass, so it does give a lot between these two phones. Let's talk about the other piece of these phones, about the actual body of both of these phones. We notice the size difference between them. Of course, you'll notice is there's a big contrast, and we'll talk about it during the actual display comparison. But if you take a look at it, the weight of these two phones, they are different because of the body size. The iPhone XS does weigh around 6.24 ounce or 177 grams compared to the iPhone 8, which weighs around 5.22 ounce or 148 ounce. So of course 1 ounce difference between it, almost about 30 grams difference between the phones. So if you're looking for a lighter phone, the iPhone 8 definitely is lighter in that aspect. And the other noticeable body difference we notice in terms of hardware build is the dual back 12 megapixel camera on the XS versus that single 12 megapixel camera. Of course, the second camera is the teleported camera that allows for that wider extension and optical zoom. That's 2 times the optical zoom that's not available on the 8. Of course, both of the phones, other things you'll notice is pretty much the same sort of body build to it. You have the top that's rounded. The iPhone XS does have that more shinier bezel compared to that matte bezel on the 8. And if you hold them side by side together, they look pretty much about the same in a lot of ways, except for that body and the display difference between these two phones. Pretty much both of the phones, of course, classic iPhone build to it. And let's talk about the differences starting with the screen of these two phones. You'll notice side by side the huge difference in a lot of the technology of these two phones. Of course, the iPhone 8 had that legacy sort of home button that allows you to do touch screen, so you put your fingerprint in, it will unlock it. With the iPhone XS brought in the Face ID feature to it, you don't have that home button. And in this time and age in 2021, a lot of people are asking sort of that home button, because if your face has mask or something on it, it's harder to actually detect, and it makes things more easy. While Apple did rumor to have that home button possibly be introduced in iPhone 13 that they're able to release. So we'll see if Apple holds up to it. But before other things you'll notice besides the top notch and the home button, difference between it is the actual display screen real estate you get. On the iPhone XS, you're getting a 5.8 diagonal all-screen OLED display. That's the Super Retina HD display compared to the iPhone 8, which has a 4.7 diagonal widescreen LCD, just a regular Retina HD display with IPS technology. And because of OLED and that IPS LCD, there's a lot of between the resolution of it. First thing you'll notice is that the HDR display, that's not possible on the 8. So the iPhone XS has that HDR display. Other thing to note is the resolution, and that's a big contrast between the resolution. The iPhone XS has a 2436 by 1125 pixel resolution at 458 ppi versus the half that resolution on the 8, which is 1334 by 750 pixel resolution at 326 ppi. And besides the resolution, thanks to the OLED on the XS, you're also able to get 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio compared to 1400 to 1 on the iPhone 8. So huge difference, of course, of the resolution of these two devices. But the couple noticeable similarities between it is that both of them does have that True Tone feature to it. They do have 3D touch, and that max brightness between them are 625. So those are the similarities of these two phones that we see of the phones. And the other thing we want to talk about these two phones is the sort of the hardware, is the actual capacity that you're able to get. The iPhone 8 and the XS both start at that 64 gig base model, which Apple has upgraded from its previous generation of phones, the iPhone 7s, which used to be 32 gig. And if you're looking to max out, the iPhone 8 does give you a 128 variation and a 256 gig variation, which is the max you can get, although the 256 model has been discontinued by Apple, but you're probably able to get it pre-owned, that 256 gig model. The iPhone XS goes a little bit bigger. You're able to go from 64 to 256 gig all the way up to 512 gig, which is the max storage capacity even on the iPhone 12 lineup. So if you're looking for more storage, you're gonna have to go with the iPhone XS, because the iPhone 8 only goes up to 256 gig, which even that model has been discontinued. So it might be hard to find that model out there. And let's talk about the other aspect of the iPhone, is the actual chip built on these two phones. The iPhone, because they're a generation apart, the iPhone XS does have that A12 Bionic chip compared to the 11 Bionic chip on the 8. Because of a year model, Apple always goes ahead and updates its chip technology on it. And the other thing to notice for gaming, and even if you're looking to really go into the nifty details of it, is that Apple introduced that neural engine on the 8. That's the first generation. On the iPhone XS, it introduced the second generation of that neural engine. Now let's talk about the other aspect. The interesting part about these two phones is what kind of battery life can you expect out of these two phones? Well, let's talk about battery life. When we talk about battery life, one thing we want to talk about between these two phones is the sort of the playback you're getting out of these two phones. And surprisingly, although these two phones are supposed to be different in contrast, they have similar sort of battery life. The iPhone 8 has about 13 hours of video playback compared to the iPhone XS, which gives you 14 hours of video playback. It's only 1 hour difference. And what does that really mean? Well, if you're a person that's a phone that if you're using it for light to medium usage, like if you're calling and texting and using app here and there, both of the phones most likely will get you through the whole day, no issues whatsoever. But if you're a person that's a heavy user, you might not be able to get much out of these two phones, as both of these phones, although they have good batteries, are not meant to hold up the whole day. As we notice when we use it, you might get to the 3/4 of the day on these two phones. And let's go ahead and talk about the actual software of these two phones. As you can see, both of the phones have been updated to iOS 14, and we're running with iOS 14 with the big app widgets, some updates to the app library, things like that. Of course, back tap and a lot more. If you guys want to learn about all the details, make sure you guys check out our other video on iOS 14, the features that come with it. We noticed between both of these devices, they are able to run iOS 14. We haven't seen any sort of issues when they are running iOS 14. Both phones are pretty phenomenal to do a lot of things. One thing we'll notice, for example, because of the bigger resolution and display and the OLED, if you're watching shows on Netflix or using YouTube and such, the iPhone XS does do a better job with it. But other than that, both of the phones can run pretty much same sort of software on both of these devices. If you're looking to download both of the phones, as you can see, if you're using it for things like social media and such, both of the phones have that features of gaming. Light gaming, you find both of the phones do an exceptional job. The iPhone XS does do a better job when you're going into heavier gaming, such as PUBG and Fortnite. Of course, Fortnite has been discontinued, but you can probably get it other ways. Things like other apps that you use on a daily basis, like your shopping apps, your music, video streaming, all of that app, your productivity tools and such, all of those apps will work no issues on both of the devices. One thing we're going to mention about iOS update is around this whole concept of how long will these two be supported. Well, because the iPhone XS is 1 year ahead versus the iPhone 8, as we know, we'll get 1 more year out of it. So if you're looking in the long run and you're looking for a phone that you want to use for the most out of it, the iPhone XS would be your go-to. The iPhone XS, we expect it to get update for another 2 to 3 years versus the iPhone 8, maybe another 1 to 2 years, 2 years probably, but of course the 8 will continue getting updates before the XS, and that's the deciding factor of iOS update. Is because Apple usually stops the iOS update, the major one, after around that 4 to 5 mark on it. So more updates to come on the iPhone XS than the 8. Nonetheless, there's a lot of varying differences between these two phones. Let's talk about the other aspect around camera. As we notice between these two phones, of course, they have dual versus single. 2 is better than 1, of course, but the front facing camera, both of them does have that 7 megapixels. So for FaceTime and such, you're going to get around the same thing. But if we talk about other things like camera, we'll want to open up the camera app here between these two devices. For photography, as you can see here, both of the phones does have that photo mode. You have 2 times versus no. Of course, the other feature you notice, iPhone X, that's not available on the iPhone 8 because it only has a single camera, is that portrait mode. So if you're looking to really enhance and get most out of your camera, the iPhone XS is your go-to because the iPhone 8 does not have that portrait mode. Of course, the iPhone 8 Plus does have that. Other thing to notice is that square mode is not available here on the iPhone XS. So if you really like that, square mode might be a thing to look at. And of course, we're going to talk about the video capacity of it. Both of the phones surprisingly can record up to 4K 60 frames per second, so you're not missing much out. Of course, the optical zoom is the part that you probably miss out between these two devices. So those are the comparison of the phones. Of course, upgraded camera makes the iPhone XS a better choice for photography. So between these two phones, what phone might you get? Which one is worth it? Well, a couple things here is if you're willing to spend a little bit more on the iPhone XS, and you can actually spend a little bit more, this phone in 2021, you can probably get it around $450 compared to the iPhone 8, which probably is half the cost of that. Probably can get it around under $250 or so. So half the cost. If you're spending that extra $150 to $200 more, the iPhone XS does have a lot more feature, better resolution, better camera, better display, and a little bit more lifetime out of it. But if you're an iPhone fan that loves that touchscreen and you prefer a smaller, lighter phone, and you don't mind the little bit of downgrade that you get, and maybe you're looking for a replacement device or a backup device and looking to do light usage, the iPhone 8 might be a better option for you. Of course, it depends on what your budget is and how much feature you want to get out of it. Of course, the more up-to-date phone is usually preferred. So that's our review of these two phones. Hopefully this video is helpful. If this video is helpful, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.